Welcome to The Big Break Show, a podcast where we discuss short-term rentals, entrepreneurship, life, mindset, and everything in between. Here are your hosts, Rafa Loza and Jesse Vasquez.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of The Big Break Show, where I'm here with Jesse Vasquez, talking with
Erin Helle, like jelly. Yeah, we had today. You guys was a good conversation. That's the only way that I remembered her last name, because I was going to say Erin Helle, actually Erin Jelly, but she gave me the insight that that's how you do not forget it. And you guys, she's got a cool story. She was ex-military, spent Rafa, 14 years in the military, and had a child, had a couple different kids, and was getting deployed to Afghanistan. Just a really cool story. Some life-changing events that happened medically, that had her change her strategy about building wealth, about being in real estate, about, working for the government, and kind of shifted her whole perspective. And actually, I heard her on Bigger Pockets years ago, and I talk about that in the episode. Her story always stood out to me, and you guys can obviously hear why it's such a standout story. There's really a lot of detail. It was a good conversation.
Yeah, I like how we went into like actual just life and children and society rather than real estate. We don't want to be this boring old real estate podcast. There's Bigger Pockets for that. But, not that Bigger Pockets is boring. I'm saying they're great. But what I'm saying is we just don't want to be another real estate podcast. And we want people to enjoy. And this was a really good conversation. I really enjoyed it, man. I love having good conversations with good people. And she's one of them for sure. So I'm excited for you guys to listen to this. Hopefully you guys enjoy this. Leave a comment if you didn't. Leave a comment if you did. Let us know what we can do and who you guys want to listen to.
One more thing too, leave a comment if you cried to the Maverick, Top Gun. We want to know, because Rafa and I were you guys are going to hear in the episode. So leave a comment down below. And also, you guys, please share this episode with people. Rafa and I we love doing this. We want to get it to as many people as possible. We don't have any sponsors on here yet. And if you want to sponsor, jump in. But if not, we give this information out to everybody. The only thing that we ask, and we don't ask for much, is to share this information. Go on to Spotify or Apple and just like it. Give us a review, even if it's bad. Leave something on there. We appreciate you all for being here and obviously listening to the podcast.
Love you, people. Enjoy the show.
What's up, everybody? Thank you for joining the podcast or the YouTube channel. We have Miss Erin Helle, like jelly, Helle. There we go. I got it right that time. And you guys, this is like our 7th time doing this. We spent the last 38 minutes going through different variations of platforms because we're having issues, and I'm going to blame Rafa's. I'm going to blame Rafa's Wi-Fi. But anyway, Erin, I actually found you back in the day on Bigger Pockets. You were one of the episodes that I listened to, and for some reason, your story stuck out to me, which is why we asked you to come onto this show. Erin was active military and is now a passive real estate investor. Actually, I'm not going to say completely passive because you're doing a bunch of work. So let's talk about your story. Let's break things down. And if you can talk to the audience about what you're doing, what your story is, what it's all about, I'll stop talking and you go on ahead.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for having me. Let me go take 3 here on my bio. I feel like I'm talking a lot about myself. So here we go. So I graduated from West Point in 2009. So spent 4 years at the United States Military Academy. And then I served in the Army for 8 years on active duty after that, plus 2 more years in the reserves. So 14 total years in the military. And I loved it. I thought that was where I was supposed to be, where I was meant to be. I was pretty good at it. I loved that you had a structured day and you had an opportunity to progress and perform, and just very career focused over that whole time. And my husband was active duty with me. He's still active duty to this day. And we knew at one point that we would have kids, but we weren't really sure what that would do to our dual military career. So we learned pretty quick. 3 months after I had my first daughter, I was put on orders to go to Afghanistan, which would have been the same month my husband was set to go to Iraq. So it was 3 months later. Our baby would have been 6 months at the time. We're both supposed to leave her. So the Army requires that you have this thing called a family care plan, which basically just, you give up rights to your own child. Someone else raises them. You have to have a portion of your income goes to that, whoever's taking care of the baby and all this stuff. You have to get it all notarized. It's this whole to-do. And, we did that because we had to, but we never really had any intention of putting that plan into action. Just because we wanted to raise our own kids. This was our responsibility. We didn't want to give them to our parents. We wanted our parents to be able to be grandparents. So Anyway, I'm like super sleep deprived, very emotional, exhausted, and I get put on orders, and I literally laughed. And I realized in the next, like, couple hours of processing this information that I really was no longer a soldier. I had no intention of ever deploying. I didn't really want to stay. I just didn't believe in it the way I did before. And certainly it was no longer a priority. Now my priority was my baby. And so I resigned overnight. My husband and I talked about it that night. The next morning, I submitted my request for resignation, which for me in the position I was in was easy. The Army was downsizing. I had already fulfilled all service obligations that I had. My paperwork was, approved 3 days later, and I was out in about 5 months, which is a crazy turnaround for a military transition. I just really pushed it, and I got out right before Christmas. So I was like trying to get everything done, and it worked out. So I got out really quick. Never really had a chance to process it. Then I became the stay-at-home mom. I did pursue other careers. I looked at project management, which was probably the closest thing to what I was doing in the military. And what I realized was, 9-hour day, 8 hours of work, hour of lunch, hour commute here, hour commute there, because we were living basically right on the Kentucky border. I would have to drive all the way to Nashville, like an hour each way. 11 hours of the day I'd be away. My baby was awake for maybe 12 hours a day. And I just sort of realized, like, I would never see this child with her eyes open. And I just couldn't wrap my head around it. I was like, how am I supposed to like have this career and also have a family? It just didn't seem fair. It didn't make any sense. And so I was like, I looked at the only alternative that I found, which was to stay at home and be a stay-at-home mom, which I laugh because it's the hardest thing I've ever done in my entire life. Like hands down, bar none. And I was not a very good stay-at-home mom because I was so unhappy and so unfulfilled. And I just spent the next couple of years like wallowing in this like position of resentment. Like everyone who got to go to work just made me mad. Like everyone just made me angry. Like, and they'd complain about work, and I'm like, you don't even know. Like you don't know what I would do to walk out this door and go to work, So I just felt bad for myself for a really long time. And then I was diagnosed with my heart condition, which just put me even further in the hole, right? And now not only was I angry, I was resentful, I was now afraid. I was like afraid to go to sleep. My heart condition, it's called long QT syndrome. I was told 2 symptoms, syncope or fainting, and sudden death. And so most people don't find out they have this until they're dead. I guess they never find out. But so it's a very like life-shattering diagnosis. And my mental health was not good at this point. I lost my network. That was, I think, looking back, I think that was the biggest issue for me. I went from being with all these like-minded people in the military who were so much like me. And then I suddenly hung out with a bunch of stay-at-home moms, Southern women. I'm not a Southern woman. I'm from New York. We are very, very different. And I just didn't realize that at the time. I just kind of thought that they were doing it right and I was doing it wrong. And they were good moms and I was a bad mom, and they were a good spouse and I wasn't. And I really let that get to me. And then, this heart condition happened, and my husband's deployed again for like the second or third time. Well, before my first turned 2, he deployed 3 times for 6 months. So 18 months of her first 24 months, he was gone. So largely going through all of this myself. And I couldn't even really talk to him about it because I was just in such a bad place. I just was dragging everybody down. But then also like, he had a really important job to do overseas. I didn't want to be a distraction. I didn't want anything to ever happen to him. And I was like, would feel like it was my fault because he was distracted. So I just didn't really talk to him about it. Didn't know who to talk to about it. And I talk about it so much now because so many women feel like this. And I'm sure men too. It's a huge transition from the military. But I know like so many women feel trapped and just feel like they have to make this huge sacrifice to stay at home with their kids. And it is such a huge sacrifice. Honestly, when people tell me that they're fulfilled doing it, I cannot believe them. I cannot in my heart of hearts, like even fathom that. This has sort of been my stance. Like I want people to know, women especially, to know that you can stay home and be fulfilled by building something for yourself, but still give most of your time and your energy to your family. And I used to hate, prepping meals and grocery shopping. And now that I have this thing, it's sort of managing my house in general, but now that I have this thing for myself and I've built this empire, I'm so proud of it. And it is for my kids and for my family. I actually enjoy being in the kitchen. And I feel like saying that sounds ridiculous coming from a feminist. Like, I love being in the kitchen, but I'd never enjoyed it before in the way that I can now. And it's because I've been empowered, I've empowered myself, and I have a platform now to empower other women. So I'm super passionate about that. But I think first things first, we have to acknowledge just how hard it is to have kids, to go through this transition and continue to have something for yourself. Sometimes we can feel guilty about that. I'm sure men feel that as well. So anyway, fast forward, or I guess rewind back to when I got diagnosed.
Yeah. How did that happen? How did you get diagnosed? Sorry to cut you.
So, interestingly, the condition only has those 2 symptoms, like I was telling you, but I think it was just total like God thing, the way this happened, because my heart would just race for no reason, which may or may not really be a symptom. And I just was like, I should probably go see the cardiologist before my husband was about to deploy again. Another like huge difficult thing when you are like a single parent is you can't take your kids to any doctor's appointments. It's such a pain in the butt. So I was like, I'm going to go see the doctor before my husband deploys. It'll make things easier. Wasn't real concerned about it. Next thing I know, I'm seeing like every specialist on the planet doing all these tests. And the guy that I initially started seeing, he kind of dragged the process out because he really did not want to diagnose me. I was like 29 at the time. He just didn't want to like give me this death sentence. And I think his perspective on it was what put me in such a bad place, because he honestly made it seem like I was going to drop dead at any moment. And he was very like mournful when he diagnosed me. And it was just a lot of pressure, a lot of stress.
Wow.
Yeah. So anyway, and then when I saw this specialist in Nashville, and he was like, yeah, you have long QT syndrome. That's it. Like the tests show it. Like, just let's move on with our lives. And he was like, before I diagnose you though, before I write this down, go get life insurance because you're not gonna be able to get it after this. And I tried at that point, but my record was already filled with all these tests. So I wasn't able to get life insurance. So all of that was really stressful. I spent months and months just being afraid. I was afraid to fall asleep because my kiddo was sleeping in her crib upstairs. And I was afraid I would die and then nobody would be able to get to her. So I told like 2 of my neighbors, I couldn't even really talk about this at the time. It was super emotional. But I felt like I had to tell a couple people. And anyway, I finally dug myself out of this hole and was like, okay, I can't get life insurance. I'm not going to get any of this time back. I might as well take advantage of the time I do have. And, interestingly, earlier this week, I spoke to an investor meetup and I told a little bit of my story. And when I was talking about this, how like I was facing this, like you could die at any minute, I had this epiphany. I was like, we're all in the same boat. Like every one of us we're not promised tomorrow. Any of us could drop dead at any minute. And so I think it's important that we all take advantage of the time that we have and that we all have a plan and we're working toward our why and whatever we want life to look like, because otherwise, what is the point? And so that's another thing that I really push when I speak or when I work with my coaching clients, like figure out what you want your life to look like and work toward that. And I know how hard it is to make that transition and to start from wherever you are and to move to it, but it's completely worth it, no matter how long it takes or no matter how much mental shift it takes. And now, I can look back at this time and I can like genuinely laugh at myself because I'm like, what a waste of time. What a waste of like making everybody miserable. Thank God for my husband who stuck with me through all that, because I can't even imagine what that was like for him. He was amazing through all of it and he just stayed. So that was cool. And then, we started making offers on our first property when I was pregnant with my second kid. She's about to be 4. So about 4 years ago, a little over 4 years ago. And we just have not looked back. And we've done everything from buying new construction, single family rentals, to Airbnbs on the beach, in the mountains, to multifamily syndications. We've done flips, wholesaled, wholesold, whatever the past tense of that word is. Just honestly, all the things. And all the things that we've done, plus, my story and my background has really taught me how important it is to figure out what I want my life to look like and stay focused on that goal. Because I have made so many, gotten off the path and made so many reroutes because I've been intrigued by an ROI, or I've just felt sorry for myself or whatever. And it's cost me so much time. And I've realized like once we dove in, it took us 3 years and 7 months to make our first million, to like build our first net worth of $1 million. And it took us just under 4 years to become completely financially free. So I spent like 3 years feeling bad for myself. If I had added 3 more years to those 4 years, I would have been in a way better position than I am now. So hopefully, no matter where people are, they realize like how quickly you can make real life change when you just commit to it.
100%.
You know, Erin, there's a lot of stuff that you put on there, man, and it's really, really inspiring. I got to tell you, for you to do what you did and get to where you're at now, there's something that you said about kind of like how far you can get, how fast you can get to it, right? I was talking to Jesse about this the other day when I started short-term rentals. So all I do is really short-term rentals, right? And I do a lot of arbitrage stuff. I don't know if you were aware of that, but I started my short-term rental journey back in 2017. And for 3 years, I was kind of just on cruise control because I was doing pretty decent for myself. Just kind of like, cool, living life, kind of not building a plan, not knowing what I wanted to do type of situation. And just in the last year, when I kind of put my head down, got to work, started doing the actual like networking and building and making relationships and talking and actually putting my head down and getting to work to where I want to go. Like my business has gone so much further just in the last like year and a half than it ever has in the last like 5 years, right? Same thing with you. And correct me if I'm wrong, right? You're basically, what I got from it is, had I not sat here and basically had 3 years of feeling bad for myself type of situation, you could have probably been 3 times even further than where you're at now, right?
1,000%. It's amazing how it feels.
Yeah, I love that. I really, really like that. I want to ask you, what's your real estate portfolio look like right now?
So total doors is 91. It's a combination of single family to 12 units that we own personally, like in our own LLCs. We own maybe 20 or so doors in our IRA. We self-directed our IRAs. But yeah, all the strategies within those 91 doors. We focus on, we have some syndications, but we personally focus on C-class, small multifamily, and then A-class short-term rentals in places that we want to travel.
I have so many questions and just in that alone. First off, I'm assuming that you guys probably used your VA loans to start off with, because if you were in the military, that's like literally the best thing. So talk to us about that, like what funding looks like. So whenever I hear somebody say 91 doors, my first thought is like, how the fuck do you get 91 doors? You know what I mean?
Yeah. So let's talk about the VA loan first, because VA loan or personal residence loan, not everyone gets to use the VA loan, but everyone can take advantage of a personal residence loan. So I think that house hacking is the most effective strategy in this space, bar none. So this is where you buy a property that you intend to live in. I'm doing air quotes for those of you listening, intend to live in for 1 year. Now that intention can change, right? We're military. We don't have a say in when we leave. Sometimes things change, or you'll get pregnant. You need a bigger house. Like, you just have to buy that property with the intention of living in it for a year. Mm-hmm. And I tell you this because we actually used our VA loan on a property that we own right around the corner from where we live now. And the performance of this property is largely why we bought the property I'm sitting in. But so we bought it with a VA loan in January of 2019, and we paid $295 for this property. We closed it in like March, but I bought it on New Year's Eve. It was the last one in this whole development. It was a DR Horton home. They were ready to move on to another development. They wanted to sell it by midnight. They said, we'll pay all your closing costs. Bring us an offer by midnight. So I went in at like 5 p.m. This lady that's in the model wants to go out for New Year's. And I just went in there I was like, I want it for I think it was listed for $310. And I was like, we'll give you $290. And my husband was deployed, which we were able to use to our advantage because I couldn't actually get a hold of him, but I pretended I was calling him. I called my mom, and I was like, Mom. And I just told her this, I was just listen to what I'm about to tell you. And so then I came back. So we said $290. They said $300. I pretended to call my husband. And I came back and I was like, he says $295. He's not going to give you another penny. So I got to make him the bad guy, which I'm a huge advocate for this strategy, whether you're talking about a business partner, a spouse. Certainly not advocating lying, but when it comes to negotiating or even just dealing with people, a lot of times you got to have your backstop, which for us was $295. We knew that. But a lot of times, just for people who don't want to deal with confrontation or whatever, you can blame it on a business partner. And I think it was Brandon Turner who said your business partner can be your cat. It doesn't really matter. But anyway, so I called my mom, who was pretending to be my husband. And I came back, I was like, $295, best we can do. And they were like, okay. So they paid for all the closing costs. We had $0 down. It appraised for $317. So we bought it for $295. So closing on this property, we had $22,000 in income right off the bat, or $22,000 in equity. Sorry. Mm-hmm. All the closing costs were paid for. So we went to closing. We didn't even have to bring a check. We didn't have to wire any money. Interestingly, they overpaid our closing costs. So we got a check in the mail like a couple of days later for like $175. And I was like, we just got paid to buy a house. Like, wow. Here's the wrench. So we bought this on New Year's Eve. We didn't close until March. In the meantime, we were told we were moving in May. So I was like, I'm not going to move my family down the road, like 20 minutes down the road in March, just to move to California in May. And we didn't have orders yet. So it wasn't set in stone. We were just told your orders are pending. So I went back to the lender. I was freaking out. I was like, we're planning to use this VA loan. We're not even going to be able to move into this house. Like, what do we do? And the lender was like, make the mortgage payments. He's like, there's no like enforcing mechanism here. No one's going to come and knock on your door and make sure that you are moving into this house. They were like, close on the property, make your mortgage payments, and everything's going to be fine. And that was like life-changing for me because I was so worried about getting in trouble. And he was like, we want to give you this loan. We want to do this loan with you. Like, let's just close on the property. So we did. So fast forward, we bought that for $295. It's now worth 2.5 years later. It's worth close to $500,000.
Wow.
In Nashville, it's appreciating like crazy. That's why, like I said, we bought the house we live in now, which is right around the corner, because this one has appreciated in 1 year almost $100,000. And we also used a VA loan on this property, so $0 into this one because we refinanced that one. When we refinanced it, we pulled out like $60,000 and bought a triplex. So that's 5 doors with no money out of pocket. So that's how that's how you scale. That's just one of the ways that you scale. And, full disclosure, like I think 30 some of our doors are purchased by us completely on our own. A lot of the rest of them are syndications. So we've invested in these. Some of them are in like funds. Other ones are just in an apartment complex that we own a percentage of.
So the syndication part, are they multifamily, like large property deals, or are they also like small, like multifamily part? Like I'm talking like larger than like 10 doors or like smaller than 10 doors?
So one of them is a 5-unit right on Jacksonville Beach. One of them and that's a short-term rental. One of them is a 12-unit also in Jacksonville, not on the beach, but that's a long-term rental. And then another one we own, we have invested in a fund. So those all the same syndicators. We know these people really well. We trust them. Like literally whenever we get such and such dollar amount in our IRAs, I'm like, tell me where to put it. And I just send it to them. And they put our IRAs because to us, you can't benefit from your IRA until you're of age. So I don't want to spend any time on that, but I want my money to work. So we put all that money into their syndications. They're the subject matter experts. They know that market so well, and they make our money make money. And one of them, they're actually focusing, the 12-unit I was telling you about, they're focusing on a cash out refinance. So we're about to get all that money back, and we're literally going to give it right back to them for the next one. So most of them are in like a single LLC for a single property. One of them is a fund. So basically once, that Jacksonville is still like on the like beginning side of, sort of growth. Like there's a lot of investors are out there, flippers are out there, but it's sort of new. It's not like Nashville, who's been his flippers have been here for 15 years. Right. So they've bought a bunch of different properties, single family homes to like 2-3 unit properties. And they just created a fund because they now have so many deals coming in. They want to just have this money available. And we haven't made any money off of that yet, but I think there's like 42 doors in that fund now. Some of them they'll sell off. Some of them they'll keep in their short-term rental portfolio. Some of them they'll keep in the long-term rental. So we just get updates like once a month, maybe even more than that. They just tell us what's going on with the properties, what the strategy is, and all that. So now they're kind of to the point where they just need that to be able to recycle that money over and over again.
I want to ask you about the IRA thing because I have a friend of mine who's got like 70 grand sitting in one of these things, and I want him to put it to work. How does it work to use that for like a syndication deal?
So you have to, first of all, find a custodian like Charles Schwab or wherever you have your money right now. They might call it a self-directed IRA. Again, I'm using air quotes, but that's just because you like get a say in what mutual fund you invested in. It's not actually self-directed. A true self-directed custodian will teach you how you can put that money to work. You can loan that money out. Like you can just give it to somebody and have them sign a contract and return that money to you, just like you were a bank. You can invest it in real estate. You can invest it in businesses. There's so many different things that you can do with an IRA that, again, this market does not want us to know about. Like the industry does not want us to know you can do this, because when you take your money away from whoever is managing it, they're no longer making money. So I'm amazed at how often when I advise clients to do this, that their money manager, whatever that term is, tells them not to do it. And it's because they don't want you to pull your money out, right? So interestingly, like sort of a side note, in this industry, when you have someone managing your money, they're typically incentivized on a quarterly basis. Whereas, I mean, none of us are working to build wealth on a quarterly basis, right? I find it to be such a conflict of interest. Like they should be measuring their performance based on what our goals are. So, but the reality is no bank's going to do that for you. No person's going to do that for you. I think you have to take control of that yourself. I think you guys have heard my story. Like you probably see that I'm all about taking control and making something happen. So a self-directed IRA lets you do that. And just for perspective, I bought my first duplex in my IRA. I had about $70,000 in this IRA when I got out of the Army. I had it in, whatever managed mutual funds, and I made $900 in an entire year. That was the most money I'd ever made. I self-directed it. I bought a duplex. I now make $1,130 a month in that IRA. And so that's, again, how we've been able to scale, because we just keep reinvesting that money because I can't touch it anyway, right? So, by the time we're done, we're going to be able to just live off of our IRAs, and everything else we've built in our portfolio will go to our kids or to some great cause just because we'll have it.
Do you feel like handing off your investments to your kids? Like, do you feel like I think about that because I have kids and I'm like, do I want to just give them the stuff that I busted my ass for? And they're just like, playing around. And, like I think about that all the time. And I've actually heard like Grant Cardone and all these like big people say like, I don't give my kids anything. Like they got to earn it themselves. That's like a thing I've been thinking about. Like my parents didn't give me anything. And if they did, would that change the way that I think about stuff? And maybe I'm changing the conversation right now a little bit, but
yeah,
I think about that. That's something to think about. Obviously, I want to like make sure my kids are taken care of, but to what degree? I guess if I'm not here anymore, who gives a crap, right? Ruff, I'm gonna hand you everything.
Yeah, I feel the same.
Yeah,
I don't have kids, so I don't know.
I think it's different. Like money's one thing. Like if you're like, oh, my kid wants this, I'm gonna go buy him that. But I think building wealth is different, especially when they see you do it. It's a different perspective than just handing somebody cash. You know what I mean? And buying them whatever they want. And I didn't mean to derail a conversation this much. Just something I thought about at the moment.
Good point. But I think too, what I've kind of learned, because I'm the same, I have a doctorate, I have a master's, I have an undergrad. What I've learned about education is that we don't need it. I have a doctorate in business administration. I've been administering businesses for the past 4 years. I have never used anything I've learned in this. Not one single thing. Not even you would think that like what you learn in an accounting class or an economics class would like directly correlate to how to manage your books. No, not even close. And so if my kids tell me they don't want to go to college, I'm going to be like, cool, what are you going to do? So I want to be able to create the space for them to do that. Especially, I was literally just looking the other day, like tuition is insane.
Crazy.
60K plus for even just like an average school. And I just cannot, I don't know how there's any sort of a return on investment. I don't know how we justify this. I think our society has it so backward. So anyway, the way that what I see me doing for my kids, or what this business will do for my kids, is allow them to, hopefully, I want them to run their own business because I've seen how fulfilling and empowering that can be. and life-changing. So I if they came to me and they said they wanted to create a business, I would love to contribute, invest in that business. But yeah, I don't think I would just give them money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's important to help people get to where they need to go to, but not like basically pave the road for them, right? It's like laying out the red carpet and go ahead and walk on it. It's done. It's more of like, here's the bricks. You go plant those bricks, go mix the cement and start walking down that road.
Totally.
You know?
I mean, I
Yeah.
have my logo. This BC Global Investments was never meant to be like a company. It was just an LLC we created years ago. The B and the C are for my daughters. It wasn't ever meant to be like something big, but I can't believe what it's grown into, and I'm so proud of it. And I'm so proud of it because of my story and where I've come from. And I think if someone were to have just given me a business today and it would be as successful as it is today, I would have been like, I would have no concept of what that costs. And I certainly wouldn't have been as invested as I am.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think that's something like not enough people talk about in a way. I think I hear it every now and then, but it's not really like, there's not really ever like a, spotlight around it. So to like really discuss those things, because, when you start building the amount of doors that you have and the amount of wealth that you create over time, it's like, I think a lot of people now are very entitled, especially kids. Like they're like, oh, that's mine. Like the kids think that whatever their parents have is theirs. And my kids do that. Like if I have something, like I'll go and take my fucking socks. Like I don't even have my own pair of socks. Like literally, you guys, like I have socks that my kids are wearing. And I get pissed off about that sometimes. And I'm just like, my kids like literally go in and just grab my stuff. Like they don't even think about it. If I did that when I was younger, my dad would have freaking smacked me with his New Balance shoe in the top of the head. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's like, I don't know. It's just a different time. But also I think it's a time that you just mentioned a second ago. Like a kid right now that's 18 years old can go and take a course, which is the same amount of money that it would cost, probably less than tuition, and literally start building a business at the age of 18. Like
Yep.
literally with the same amount of income that you would take to go to an actual 4-year college. Now, if you've invested that exact same amount of money that a 4-year college is and you're like, and through courses, holy shit. And you're actually serious about creating
Really.
something of it. Just think of what that could actually do. And I talked to my daughter that's 18. She's going to school for business. And now you just kind of messed my head up about this because she's in an accounting class right now. But I think that people have to want to do that on their own. They have to like want to, and sometimes that like gateway is that 4-year college. And then you kind of do that. And then you see like, holy crap, I could do something else. Or it's like, it's almost like those pieces. But when you see a parent that's doing something or a sibling or somebody and you're involved in that and you see it happen on a regular basis, it kind of shifts perspective on maybe this is kind of easy, or maybe this is not easy, but I watched my mom go through it. Or, I watched my mom go in the military, and then I watched her create a business, and then I watched her have a heart condition, and then I watched her do so. It's like your story now compounds to them, and then they translate that internally because kids soak everything. You know how that is. And as they age, they start doing their own thing. But one of the things I love too about your story is like a lot of people could have just laid down and like been like, oh fuck this, I'm done. Like I can't do this anymore. Like poor me, woe me, that whole thing. But you kind of just like dealt with it. And even the whole parenting part of it, like a lot of moms and a lot of people don't talk about this stuff a lot. And there's like postpartum depression and all other stuff that comes in with it. I'm a big mental health person. Like I try to continue to stay up on that. And we live in these societal norms where, well, now it's changing, but the 50s, 60s was like a woman goes and does the stuff behind the sink and cooks dinner and all that stuff. And nowadays, like it's not like that. It's different. I'm glad because I have a daughter, right? Like it's just that whole shift in the culture, and you don't have to stay at home. Like that's not what everybody's for. And I think for you, you miss that camaraderie. Like when you're in the military, it's like it's very synergistic. Is that even a freaking word? Maybe I just made it up. But yeah, it sounded like I know what I'm talking about. I think I just made that up. I'm sure somebody in the comments will be like, "You asshole, that's not a word." But yeah, you know what I mean. Like you went from that to like just being at home where it's quiet, and plus your husband was deployed in the military, so I mean that's a thing in itself.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, like, so honestly, as much as it seems like society has changed, it hasn't changed nearly as much as, we like to think. I mean, we just saw what happened to Roe v. Wade. Like not to get into politics at all, but we haven't come as far as I would like us to be. And there's just still my kids go to a Christian school, and I know not everyone experiences this, but they still in churches and at their school to a large extent actually teach them that's very patriarchal, view of society. And I struggle with that because I come from a family where my dad abused my mom. And I think that the abuse is accepted by women who think they are worth less than men. Or in some cases, the roles can be completely reversed. It can be the woman that's the abuser. But I think ultimately, typically it's this like hierarchy of importance or worth or something that allows someone to take that type of abuse. It could be emotional abuse. It could be physical abuse. It's happening in the workplace too. It's obviously not physical abuse, but a lot of people, not just women, but the stats are there to support that women get paid significantly less. To this day, women make 81 cents on the dollar as compared to men. Black women make less. Hispanic women make less than like 50% of what white men make. It's disgusting. And these stats are only, these stats don't tell the individual stories of these people who could be stuck in an abusive marriage, could be stuck living somewhere where they don't need to be. And it's just, there's so much more to it than whatever the society tells us. A lot of it has to do with confidence and mental health, and we're totally going off on a tangent. But I think that one thing that I'm really passionate about is showing my daughters, and I coach my daughter's softball team and soccer team, and I love showing these little girls that as a woman, as a girl, you can do whatever you want. And I actually had this little boy say to our soccer team is co-ed. And with this boy joined our team late on his very first practice, he tried to score a goal. I'm one of the little girls I've been coaching for years. I have a great relationship with her. She was playing goalie. She blocked his kick and he whispered to her that she sucked. And she was pissed and I didn't blame her. And I said, you know what? The only reason he said that to you is because you stopped his kick. I was like, if you let that ball in, he wouldn't have said that to you. I was like, get used to it because this isn't the last time it's going to happen to you. So you got to grow some thick skin and you've got to use that as fuel because you're going to see this again. And I'm like, I can't believe I have to have this conversation with a 6-year-old. But this is reality. It was reality when I was a kid, 30 years ago. It's still a reality today. And that sucks. Like that sucks as someone who's raising 2 little girls. I feel like the only way that you can teach them and empower them is just to teach them to be tough. And even when they're not, like my 3-year-old, she's not tough. She's tough, but she's super sensitive. And you have to teach them, like, it's okay to have your feelings and have your emotions, but if you don't do something about them, no one's going to feel bad for you, sort of like my time in the Army or as I've built this whole portfolio for myself. Like, no one else cares about it the way that I do. And so I think it's just so important that we take pride in ourselves and we work for ourselves and we show that to other people too. But I think that that is like the biggest issue with mental health, just not feeling worthy. And I think I struggle with mental health. I've struggled with depression, anxiety, but I've learned how, not to the full extreme, but you can really set the conditions for your mental health and you can certainly focus on it. So anyway, I don't even know how we went down this road.
No, you know what? Yeah, so it's funny because I have so many thoughts behind what both of you are saying, and it's crazy. I wish we had more time to go into it, but it's true. In this society, and I think people are kind of slowly waking up. In society, it's like there's nobody that ever wants to get better with other people. It's like every single person I've ever dealt with, it's only a handful of people will help each other get better at what they're doing together, right? Everybody's like, I'm better than you at this. No, I beat you at this. I'm going to be better than you at this. Like, it's never like, hey, how about we both grow together and get better together? And it's rare to find people like that. And in order to get to people like that, you have to be the one to teach people to do that from a very young age. I mean, society, like going back to what Jesse was talking about earlier, like I think people are slowly starting to wake up and realizing like the school system doesn't work, right? We all know that here. And it's slow. And I think it's going to probably be in another generation with the people who realize it now that they're going to teach their kids to be like, yo, school's pointless. You don't need to go. How about you focus on something that you can actually build a business or career out of, that you're passionate about, that you don't have to go and pay someone $500,000 and spend in, and you can actually build this business with, that you can do something with, right? So, I mean, look, we can go on forever. And I like what you're saying about this little girl, because there's people like, she's going to go through this forever, right? Especially right now, the way we are. Like, there's people that are always going to bully her. There's people that are always going to tell her, hey, you're not as good as what you think you are. And that's not the case at all. I mean, there's people out there that are better than everybody else. I just wish it was different. I just wish people would help each other grow and be better,
Well, and most of the time, I would say 100% of the time, when someone is coming at you from a bad place, like, they're always jealous, 100% of the time. And so, like, when you are where I was 5 years ago, 6 years ago, I had no capacity to celebrate someone else's successes or to think that someone accomplishing a promotion or something was a good thing. It was a personal attack on me because I was in such a bad place. Now that I've built this business and I've chosen to be grateful. I do gratitude exercises on a daily basis, and I've created this space for me mentally, emotionally, physically, financially. I have the capacity to want good things for other people because good things have happened to me. And I'm now able to give back financially and time wise. Like, I'm always volunteered. I tell people this all the time. I've always volunteered, mostly because I feel like out of obligation, it's just something I should do. It wasn't until like 2 years ago that I've actually started enjoying volunteering. And it's just because of my mindset and the space I'm in. But so when people are coming at you or like they're negative towards you, it's 100% has to do with them. And so you can't do anything but feel sorry for them. But at the same time, you can create all the opportunities for them and give them the path to success. Most people are not going to do it.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's really up to them, right? Like sometimes I'll have conversations with people, Erin, and it's like they're doing really well, and I'm like, man, I love it, I'm crushing it. But there's times where I'm like, I wish I could do better, right? We all struggle with it, right? I think it's a constant practice of saying, hey, we're here as a society together to help each other get better and build and be better, right? And it's a constant thing. You have to constantly practice it and just work at it every single day. Otherwise, I mean, what's really the point, right?
Yeah. Well, you know what, too, Rafa, is we get told we suck all the time being on these platforms, like, social media and stuff. People are like, you suck. Like, literally, I remember just reading our Facebook comments or our big break comments, and some guys like, Jesse's voice is annoying. He sucks. And I'm like, I like that.
Like, he curses too much. I was like, okay.
Yeah, I enjoy that because it's fun for me. But also, going back on this conversation, I like where this conversation is going. I know we were talking about real estate and stuff, but I've watched a lot of successful people, and the most successful people I know have a huge, like, they don't think they're good enough. And it's like that consistent drive. It's like it's always trying to be better, always
Yeah.
trying to be better because they don't feel like they're good enough. And the second thing that they have is being able to have self-control, like a huge self-control piece of their mental, state. They're being able to they can control, whatever it is with their business or whatnot. They're not chasing the shiny object. They're just like very hyper focused on this one individual thing, and they're staying in that course. And I think that's those two kind of things are huge for successful people. And obviously one of them is like, if you don't think you're good enough, like that's hard. Like that's super difficult to deal with. And I think probably to a degree, I deal with that on a regular basis. Like, I'm not going to lie about that. That's something that I'm like, I'm not good enough at this, but that's also been the fuel to help me be successful. And I've watched other people that have that same thing. And they're not always going to go out there and tell you like, yeah, I think I suck all the time. But in reality, that's like the drive that continues to push people to get to that second degree and the next degree. But then it's like, you got to celebrate the wins, because if not, then what's the point of doing what it is you're doing? You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we all have moments of self-doubt, no matter how successful you are. I mean, you could be the literal GOAT and you're still a human. Like, you still have self-doubt. And that is something, once I understood that and was able to like fully make that a part of my business plan, it helped a ton because I'm so goal oriented. And I think the hard part about, like what you said, like as a business owner, you are constantly growing, you're constantly moving. When you have a goal, it's like you realize there's no end state. Like, there's no end to this, like, which is part of the fun. But it's not until you realize like this is a journey and it's not like a path to a certain point. That's when I feel like when you make this a lifestyle business, like I remember it's about to be my husband's birthday, but 2 birthdays ago, so like 2 years ago, I had a breakdown on his birthday because I ended up working like the whole day, and something came up, and I was in a partnership at the time, and I was kind of like beholden to my partners, and I've set myself up so I'm not stuck like that now. Stuck isn't the right word, but so I had this like couple weeks of just turmoil where I was like, I should just fold the business, and because I can't like live the life I want, but also run this business. I finally realized though, like I do love it. I have to work. The alternative is what I talked about in the beginning of this podcast, I have just learned to accept that this is my lifestyle and this is what I want. And I think once I changed my perspective, like I now wake up almost every Saturday morning and work, and I love it. I get up before everyone else, and that's my time to have coffee, kind of reset my direction, go through my goals, plan my week. And I love, that's like my favorite time, Saturday morning at like 5 o'clock in the morning, which, you know, is kind of crazy for most people, but this is just the way that I've chosen to look at it and change my perspective. And that's been really, really changing as well. And then also just to learn, like, so much of this is about the journey. And this past weekend, I competed in my first CrossFit competition. I'm 35. I started CrossFit in December, like 9 months ago.
Badass.
Yeah. So it was the most humbling experience I've ever had. And they took the top 5 women, and they let them compete in the final. And the whole weekend, all I wanted to do was make the top 5. I ended up placing 6th. And after that last workout, I cried. I was so exhausted. I just broke down and I cried. And my 6-year-old was like, "What's wrong?" And I just said, I didn't make the final. And I just talked her through it. I was like, I'm super upset about it. I worked so hard and to get this close and not make it. And I realized, like, I went and I took a shower and we were like loading up the car. And I was thinking about my swimming days. I was a swimmer through college. And every time that I would cry, my dad would like get so mad. And he'd be like, "You're not allowed to cry. Like, there's no crying in swimming. Like,
No crying in baseball.
yeah." And I would I thought I was like just this super emotional, like horrible athlete who would never accomplish anything. And then, I get into the Army and there's like, oh, all the girls do is cry. So I had this like vendetta, like never let them see you cry. And now that I have these daughters, I have one who's just like me, and I have another one who's super sensitive, and she's going to be a crier. And I'm like, you know what? There's nothing wrong with crying. There's nothing wrong with crying. And so anyway, long story short, I think that having my daughter see me in that moment and see me like work so hard and be so disappointed, but then kind of come full circle and just say like, look what I just did. Like, I was the oldest athlete by like close to 10 years, you guys. It was embarrassing. And so anyway, I just think that like being able to show them that is huge. And then also it took me a while to kind of come back and realize like I was really disappointed at my 6th place finish. But then I was like, look at what I just did. Like, just finishing this is pretty cool. And I left it all out there. Like on that last workout, I could hardly walk. And so something I've been really focusing on this week is just sort of redefining our idea of success. Like, had those top 5 women not entered that competition, I would have won. But I could have gone a lot easier and not won. So it's like, you can't really define success in certain like ways like that. Or even like when you're in the Army, your success is totally dependent on what your boss thinks of you. And your boss can have a very different life perspective, or maybe he just doesn't like you. And because of that, you get a bad evaluation. And I am a huge, especially like when I'm focusing on my conversations with women, like for us to have it all, we have to define what it all is. And I think that applies to everyone, obviously, but defining success and working toward that success is the difference between having your mental health in the right place and being in a good place where you can see other people's success and actually appreciate that, or just be super negative all the time.
Erin, again, man, you have great stories. So here's the thing, right? You already won in itself. The fact that you joined the competition, had you not done it, you never would have gotten to that point. That's already success in itself, right? I was just talking to somebody about this yesterday. I read this really book called The Gap in the Gain, how you focus on the things that you've gained instead of the gap of what you need to get to, right? Yeah, you're upset you didn't win first place. Yeah, you're upset you didn't get to that point, but look how much better you are now than when you first started. The fact that you even placed, right? The fact that you even joined the competition. How many people out there say, I'm going to do this, and then they never do it? I do it all the time, right? You actually did a CrossFit competition. I did CrossFit for years, and I never won to the competition because I was scared to do the damn thing, right? I was like, I'm going to get destroyed. I don't want to do it. You alone have already won by joining this competition, doing better than what you were doing last year, right? Next year, the goal might just be to join 2 competitions or maybe get to that 5th place. You got to focus your success on your own measurements, not other people's measurements of you.
Totally.
Simple.
Yeah. Rafa, too, like I just had this epiphany happen the other day where just exactly what you said, like my goals were always like the prize. that's like, I need to get to this freaking spot right here. This is the prize. But if you just shift your mentality and like, my goal is I'm going to put out one piece of content every 3 days a week. I'm going to sit down behind that camera and make that YouTube video, and you become in love with that, obsessed with that, the goals are going to fucking come. Like, that's going to happen. But that process of, this is what I need to do on the day-to-day basis, instead of focusing that goal. And you got to look at stuff over a long period of time, because stuff doesn't happen overnight, unless you're Rafa. But like, it's being in love with that process, like shifting your mindset from the goal is to get $1 million to like, again, I need to do these little incremental things every day to get to where I need to be. That goal at the $1 million is not even there anymore. It's just a small work in between. I think that's where it's really been hard, and not hard, but like to refocus where your mental, process of what an actual goal truly is. Because Rafa, you just said it there like perfectly, in that book. So that's a huge thing too. And I think that now I'm barely getting to that point now where it's like with content, and we talk about this all the time, Rafa, right? And you too, Erin, that content is so important nowadays going forward, whether it's YouTube or Facebook or Instagram. It's like, I hate getting behind a camera and being like, hey guys, welcome to my channel, blah, blah, like, but I have to fucking do that. And I have to put little reels together, and I have to do that. So I have to like be in love with doing that. And the goal later was educating people and bringing them in to have them understand what it is you're doing and providing value, and being scared of giving too much value. Because you guys just said it a second ago that I can literally give everybody the script to midterm rent to travel nursing agencies, and only like 1.11% will do it when I actually really give it to them.
Yep.
So
Yep.
I think now my perspective is, if I'm scared to put it out there, I'm putting it out there because only like literally 1% is going to do it. And you guys are probably the same way in that same.
Yeah, but you know what too, Jesse, though, here's the thing. That 1% is already a win, right? 100 people, one is successful. You did your job, man. You went out there and you changed one life.
Right.
You helped that one person go out and do it. It's going back to the whole definition of like an overnight success, right? You got to be consistent with what you do. Everybody just sees where you're at, but they don't see, you seen that meme, right? Where it's like 5 years of straight work, and then all of a sudden you're rich, famous, and popular. And it's like, oh, you just got rich overnight. It's like, well, yeah, 5 years worth of work. Same thing with this, right? You go out there and you're consistent. You put in a little bit of effort. You put in a little bit of effort. You don't know who you're going to reach, right? I've had conversations with people who I'm like, hey, can we just take a quick hour? And I'm like, sure, and we'll have a quick hour, and then that's the end of it. I don't think about it later. And then like a month later or a year later, they're like, dude, that one conversation, I have like 20 units up, crushing it, making all kinds of money. I'm like, dude, wow, thanks. Because you don't know who's gonna get help, or who you're gonna reach with that.
Yeah. That's what frustrates me about social media the most too. Cause I'm just like you, Jesse. I hate doing that. I hate it. I hate being on camera and constantly like, it's like you have to like brag about yourself constantly. And I always find it interesting though. Like, I'll have someone come to me and I've never heard of their name. I've never seen their face. And they're like, I've been following you for 2 years. I'm like, dude, you never one time liked my content. Like, not once. And they're like, you've changed my life. And I'm like, okay. It's just.
And then they ask you to be on their podcast, right?
Oh man, yeah, look, it's great. Like, putting content out there is scary for everybody. It's super, like, you don't know who's going to judge you. People are going to hate you. There's always going to be some hater out there shooting you down. But the whole point of it is you're going to change a couple of lives out there, no matter whose it is, you, without knowing it, right? Without knowing it. They might just be the quiet person in the back of the room, but then they're slowly paying attention and picking it up, right? Even the people around you who are scared to say it, but they're changing their lives, So, all right, we're getting to the top of the hour, guys. I don't want to change this conversation, but I want to be respectful of your time. So we asked these 2 questions to everybody. And being that this is the big break show, Erin, I want to know, what was your big break in life, business, relationships, whatever the case may be, that got you from old Erin to new Erin?
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't say there was any big break. I don't know that to me, I see a break as like this thing that happened that was like an opportunity that you just jumped on and you ran with. I don't think there was any like thing like that in my business that catapulted me to the next level or anything like that. But the thing that ultimately shifted my mindset was just realizing, like, after getting diagnosed with my heart condition, we have a finite amount of time on this earth, and we can waste it and we can die, and maybe someone will show up at your funeral, or you can put that time to good use and make the most of it and improve your own life.
Yeah, I agree to that. I totally agree to that. That was different when I remember before the show started. I was like, I don't know what she's going to say. You didn't say it. But I thought you were going to say the heart condition changed, but I guess you did kind of say that. So maybe I'm right.
Say that, yeah. It kind of put you in a.
Cool.
So the way I look at it is, it puts you into a different perspective. It's either succeed to what I need to do because I have a very small amount of time on this planet, or I can just cruise through my life and not do anything.
Yeah. And you know what's crazy too, Erin? You're out there pushing your heart every day or 4 times a week. like doing this CrossFit thing. So you're not like scared about it anymore.
I was actually going to ask about that too. I was going to ask you about that, but I just didn't want to, because, you know, it goes on forever. But I was going to ask you about that. Like,
yeah, I mean, mine is not fitness related at all. And I have to actually keep my heart muscle strong to help in the event that I have an incident. Luckily, because there was a time where we thought it might have been fitness related and I couldn't work out. During all this like diagnosis and stress, they told me I couldn't work out, which is like my thing I do has always been there for me. And so that made everything worse. But yeah, I'm really grateful it has nothing to do with fitness. Like my triggers have nothing to do with fitness. So I'm blessed in that sense.
That's good. Yeah, I'm with you on that exercise stuff too. So one other thing that we have here in the show is an actionable step that somebody can take after listening to this show, like something literally somebody can go do. What is that one thing that you have advice that you can give?
Yeah. Sit down and set a goal. Set a goal. This is more than one thing, I guess. Set a goal and commit to it. Do whatever it takes to get to that goal. And it can be the smallest little step, you know, like people who say they want to get healthy and get fit. It literally could start with drinking 10 ounces of water first thing in the morning. A lot of times it is the simplest thing that you just do consistently. So set a goal, commit to it, and work toward it.
I love that.
Simple, straight into the point. I got a goal for Rafa. Rafa, I need you to cry one time, okay? Not in the shower anymore. Like just actual have like a good cry.
I cried at the end of I cried at the end of Top Gun Maverick, bro.
Did you?
But it was really.
Are we gonna have a crying competition right now? Because I cried at Toy Story 1, 2, and 3. I mean, come on, dude.
Oh my goodness.
Oh man, even like all the Disney movies get me every time. Oh, goodness, is that Pixar though? I think that might be Pixar. It's not Disney. So, Erin, we've heard it all. We appreciate you. For those of you that are looking to find Erin, where can we find you, Erin? Because you have like a bunch of stuff going on. You got a course. You want to talk to us about your course that you have going on real quick?
Yeah, so you can find it at bcglobalinvestments.com. There's an education tab. I'm a big fan of education. And I will just teach you the 8 steps I used over and over again to become a millionaire, from building your why to setting your goals to analyzing your market and building your team, and then finally looking at individual properties and scaling. So it's all in there. Check it out. You can find me on Instagram, the Erin Helle _investor coach, and on Facebook at the Erin Helle.
Awesome. Yeah, there it is, folks. Go find her. Go network with her. Like her posts, or she's gonna get pissed at you. Obviously, she just said that a little bit ago. I'm just kidding, but yeah, follow her stuff. And Erin, I really love your story. And again, I've listened to hundreds of Bigger Pockets episodes, and I was like, Erin, we got to have Erin on the. I heard your story, and I was like, we got to have her on. So I love that we talked a lot today about obviously real estate. We didn't even dive into the whole real estate. We kind of went into the mental health, motherhood. But you know what? There's so many real estate podcasts. I mean, shit, people can find those all over the place. This is different. And I think it hits to a different drum, and it also brings us to like, we're people. Like, this is life. This is exactly what it is. It's not just numbers. It's not cold. It's not real estate. This is like life itself, which is what this podcast is about. So, Erin, I'm super thankful you're here. I'm grateful. I'm gonna go watch Maverick because I definitely need a good cry. So, Rafa, if I don't cry at that on that movie, dude, I'm gonna be pissed at you.
And you will, bro. Trust me, Erin. Thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate you being here. This was a great conversation.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree. It was fun.
Thanks, Erin.